moved on to tips and recommendations for new and existing sellers. So, Mike, if you want to go next in regards to sharing some tips and recommendations for new and existing sellers.
Okay. First tip: make sure you've got a good accountant. So, but yeah, no, 100%. That's one of the things I've learned, especially through having businesses in the past. And this is not just a plug for you guys, but having a good accountant is definitely, or if you've, I think a lot of people when they set up, especially I'm going from, I'm using eBay here as an example, but it's probably not first thing on people's minds. And then when they start realizing they've hit the threshold of, they've got to start paying some taxes and stuff like that, they're going to realize that they need to get an accountant, and it's all done last minute. Now, I would honestly say if you're just about to set up, start putting the feelers out there straight away, looking for an accountant, sign up to you guys. But yeah, that's definitely a top tip. And then other things as well. I found staffing is probably, you get to a point with the business where you've grown that business. You get to a point where you are the one-man band. You're doing everything yourself. You're the marketing expert. You're doing your accounting and books. You're doing the buy-in. You're doing the sourcing. All of that, and you get to a point with that where you need to start getting staff and starting to employ people. And I found that's probably one of the hardest things to do, taking that leap. But I think it's the only way to grow your business, and you can only take on so much yourself. So depends on where you want to be as a seller. If you're happy with just making enough money to get by, it depends what your goals are. And again, setting goals, setting targets, going back to what I said earlier on. But I've always said I want to take my business into the millions, and for that you can't do that on your own. You need to get staff, and yeah, that's kind of where the position where I'm at with my business now. We've employed some people, and it's starting to grow.
Yeah, it makes sense. I suppose managing numbers is never a bad thing, can always help, and individuals and companies can support that. And yeah, I think adding the right personnel naturally is a key element of where one can grow the business. Dan, if you want to go next.
For sure. I totally agree with Mike on accountants. You'll think you have calculations right, and they'll show you very different. So that's a huge one. And I think on hiring is also a big deal. And if you do find a good person, hang on to that person. It's very difficult to find people who can work the way you want them to work. So when you do, really, you have to value those individuals. Another big thing I would say, kind of leading on to that, it reminded me of hiring for social media, because personally, I don't love building social media. I do really enjoy YouTube, but I don't enjoy a lot of platforms, especially if it's like brand building. And I think for a lot of new sellers, they should really focus on that aspect as well, is getting that brand onto social media. And that's kind of the most cost-effective way, because once you have that audience, you can scale so much quicker. You have individuals you can sell the first product, second product to. And if you have capital and you don't want to build that, then look at influencers, look at influencer marketing. It's huge. And you will be able to find individuals who can promote your product on those platforms. But it's often quite difficult to get them to commit, because they are inundated with requests. So that's another thing you'll have to have strategies to get through. But those are two big things. And then for existing sellers, I would say double down on what's working. So if you have 5 products, 2 of which are kind of just breaking even, double down on those 3 that are really working. Because if you can order more, the manufacturing cost goes down per unit, but maybe you can even move to full container loads. And when you get to FCL, you're really saving. You're almost shipping 40% for free, because once you're filling a container like 60% with other people's shipments, you're actually paying almost as much for the full container. So anyway, you're going to have scale. And in this way, one of the bigger things is, of course, you're going to have higher profit per unit. But another big thing, especially now, is you have a lot of people running out of stock. And what people don't factor in is if you can stay in stock when the competitors run out, there's a lot to be made in that period of time, not only in sales, but also in ranking your product and competing, particularly if you're behind. Let's say you enter a market where they have more reviews, they've been there longer. If you can catch them in the out of stock positions, it's a very good position to be in as well. And that might even include having a 3PL on the side. But those are just a couple things. Double down on what's working, and cut out the fat, and focus on those that work really well. Because 20%, it's kind of like that Pareto principle. 80% of revenue comes from 20% of the product line. So at some point, you have to start really narrowing down to what's working best for you.
Yeah, makes sense. I think naturally, narrow it down. I think that's well said, because naturally it's better to focus on things that are working and really refining the growth of the business, as opposed to constantly needing to diversify. But at the same time, naturally, what works for people is where the focus is solidified more so. Great. Zain, if you want to go next.
Yeah, so tips for new sellers and old sellers, that would be, first of all, is there any particular tool or anything which can make your life easy? I will not have any hesitation. By all means, I'm subscribing to it, I'm signing up for it. And speaking of tools like accounting and everything, other than knowing like how much profit you're making, it's also a legal requirement as well. So if you're a new seller, if you're an old seller, I would, without any hesitation, subscribe to, Osome as well. You can go to osome.com, or somebody will put the link inside the chat as well. That's the number one thing I will do, because look, if you need to keep a record of each and everything that you sell, which is a bookkeeping, and at the end of financial year, you need to do your tax return anyway. So why not have the complete package all at one place and still be cost effective at the same time as well? It is an absolute necessity for each and every e-commerce seller. The other things in the terms of tips and everything, I will second Dan as well, and I say whatever is working at the moment for you, double down on those things and have no hesitation in the terms of doubling down when it comes to whatever is working for you as well. Along with that, the other, just a short thing which I will like to add is, it's a business where we will have to take a lot of risk, and 70% of my revenue comes from Amazon, and running no business, a YouTube channel or affiliate marketing, nothing is easy out there as well. I highly recommend, and I think 25 people who are watching, they come here because they want to run an e-commerce business, and I will say it's you have to take a risk, or otherwise you're going to lose a chance. That's the way I think about it.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing. Hello?
Yeah, that's all from me. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. Just conscious of time. Shimmy, if you can go next, and then perhaps we may go into Q&A shortly after.
Sure. Tips and tricks for new sellers and existing sellers. I would say I agree with everyone in terms of managing your money with an accountant, a bookkeeper of some sort. definitely. I mean, for me, the biggest benefit of using an accountant is the fact that I've saved an absolute fortune on tax and knowing what can be taxed, what can't be taxed, and all of that kind of stuff, which has been a lifesaver. And obviously all legal ways, but just so many people don't realize, like especially during COVID, a lot of people were working at home, which means part of their house costs, they're working from a house office, so a lot of their house costs could actually be expenses for the business. Just a lot of things. So that too, and then for new sellers, tips and tricks. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I would say, I'd say just go for it. I mean, it's hard to give a tip or a trick because it totally depends on what you're doing, what business you want to start, all those different types of things. But I'd say just go for it, and if you fail, that's fine. Fail fast, move on. For existing sellers, it's probably a bit easier to give some advice. I would say for existing sellers, don't ever think that you're above, learning more. So even if you're, making a fortune, don't, think, oh, I don't need to watch this YouTube. I don't need to read this book. I don't need to learn anymore. I'm at the peak. I know everything, right? Always try and be, the humble one in the room. Always try and learn more and you got these people like Warren Buffett who literally read a book every single week. You would think they don't need to do that, but he understands the value of education, and I don't just mean education through courses, because I don't remember who, but someone said that literally everything you need is pretty much online now anyways for free. So you don't really need a course if you don't want one. And then more importantly, you've got books. Books have absolutely everything. So regardless of if you're making 10 grand, 100 grand, a million every single year, just keep learning, and you'll see, you'll have light bulb moments where you'll be able to be like, oh, I'm going to try this. And now that you have more money, you have the means to actually implement it. You'll see it will really, really work. So yeah, those are the two tips and tricks, I should say, for sellers.